And I'm sitting down with Danny Hozak, our Wild Rose candidate for Vermilion-Lloydminster region. Thanks again for sitting with us here, Danny.
Thanks for inviting me in.
So Danny, very busy time for you and all the other candidates. And the reason I say that is because a lot of parties are right now scrambling ever since the PC party broke their fixed election rule and decided to tell Albertans we're going to polls this spring. Now, is this fair to other parties, and is this even legal?
I wouldn't comment on whether it's illegal or not. It wouldn't seem to me it is, but we did have a fixed election law, and Jim Prentice has obviously broken it, and we're getting ready to offer our Wild Rose Party up to Albertans, and I think we'll be ready, and we'll let Albertans decide whether it was both legal and ethical.
But how fair has it been to you and your party so far? I mean, I know you guys have been really busy.
Well, it has left us scrambling. Like, we just finished filling the last of our candidates are just taking their papers to the returning officer as we speak. I think the deadline is 2 o'clock, and unless somebody trips on the sidewalk, we'll have 87 candidates and a full slate, and we'll be ready to continue to provide good opposition in Alberta.
So, and this early election comes right after, you can almost say, a controversial PC budget. A lot of people unhappy with this, including the Wild Rose Party. You guys, in fact, have come out with your own version of the budget, and one that includes not raising taxes. Now, how does that work?
Well, clearly a lot of people aren't happy with Prentice's budget, which brought in 59 new taxes. We've presented our alternative budget, which would cap the increase in debt in 2017. We'd be back to balanced budgets. We've done a pretty good job of presenting a budget which it relies on deferring some capital spending. It relies on reducing management by, I think, 3,200 positions, 1,600 in Alberta Health Services and 1,600 at the top levels of the government. And it involves a whole range of fiscal prudence, and I think it's entirely doable. It's been looked at by a range of academics in Alberta, and you can be sure that if there were any holes in the budget, Jim Prentice would be out with his chart and a graph showing what was wrong with it. And the fact that he hasn't said anything about it except to just say he doesn't like it, to me proves that it is a doable budget, and we intend to do it.
All right, and I would be amiss if I didn't at least mention the backlash that the Wild Rose Party got when then leader Danielle Smith and a few other MLAs crossed the floor into the PCs. Now, I know today's Wild Rose has been fighting against that image and kind of trying to win back support. How is that going?
I think it's going wonderfully, and I think we have to realize, and I think most people in the country do realize, that in the last election we had 422,300 and some odd people who voted for Wild Rose. Only 11 of them left, and they were the 11 people that were being paid. And so when I talk to my friends, they're as excited as ever. They're still committed to helping our party to provide or to build a better Alberta that has healthcare that works, that gets value for every dollar spent, has an accountable government that doesn't leave their kids in the next generation with a huge big debt. So I think we've rebounded quite nicely, thank you very much.
And other than the budgets like you talked about earlier here, what else would the Wild Rose Party change in the government if they were elected in May?
Well, we're a long ways from being elected in May, but as I said, in our fiscal plan, we will cap the increase in borrowing at about $15 billion by 2017. So we'll be back to balanced budgets by 2017. As you know, the Prentice budget, by their own admission, will have us at, by 2019, about $31 billion of debt. Just by capping the debt at $15 billion will save us about $1 billion of interest in perpetuity starting in 2017. And if you relate that to infrastructure that we all know that we need, that $1 billion of interest savings starting in 2017 would build approximately 20 Dr. Cook nursing homes a year across Alberta every year, or it would build 5 new hospitals in Alberta every year. And in the last election, I'm not quite sure how many schools it would build, but in the last election, Alison Redford promised 120 schools, has only built 1 of them. So there's a lot of things we can do, but the main thing we have to do is get our spending under control.
And finally, I'll end on a simple question. Why Wild Rose? Why now?
Well, Wild Rose now is because we've actually, as a province, we've had pretty much like winning the lottery. We've had a decade of the highest revenues in Alberta's history. And in that decade, Alison Redford, Jim Prentice, and his PCA friends have taken us from having $17 billion in savings to potentially being $30 billion in debt by 2019. And so the sooner we have Wild Rose, the less debt we will end up with, and the brighter our future will be, because all of these infrastructure things, all the things that we all believe that we need, once debt becomes a line item in your budget, there's less infrastructure you can buy every year. And so I think the PCs have frittered away like one of the sort of economic booms of the century, and now we're heading into difficult times, and we think we have the resolve to get our spending under control.
So that's all the time we have. Thank you again for joining us here, Danny, and good luck in May.
Thanks for having me in.